And we're live. Welcome to the Best in Slot Podcast, a Warcraft podcast by the community for the community. I'm your main host, Sparty. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Midgettes. How are you, Midgettes? Welcome back.
Hi, it feels like forever since we've been together, Sparty. I missed you last week.
Of course, I would miss me too. But this is
Of
episode
course you would.
this is episode 41, and today we'll be talking about the cost of mythic rating and really rating in general. From the time to gold to costs, and there's a lot more involved in the min-maxing than just showing up to raid. Today we take a bit of a look at the increasing costs of raiding and how to sustain an existing team or really build up a new team while focusing on progression and team achievements. We've got a lot. It's a very gold-centric one, but it's also, it's high investment in terms of raiding. People want to raid, but what do I need to do? So we'll be talking about all that kind of stuff on today's podcast. But we do have Midge's favorite part of the podcast first.
Yes, the part that I missed last week.
I'm trying to remember. I think Spencer had a joke last night too, or last week rather. You can just listen to last week's podcast. All right, this one's for the Horde ones. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
I did use it last night, so in case people heard it, you can hear it again. This is again for the Horde. For those of you that are Horde listeners out there, why does Princess Talanji have trouble hiring an interior decorator?
I don't know why.
She always asks for things to be a little lower
Oh, good grief.
because she's a troll, and she wants things lower.
I got it. Yeah,
Lower.
if you have to explain the joke, it's not very good.
It's twice as funny when I explain it. So after the joke, the big news, I guess, this week is the Method World First, which was quite incredible. Did you get a chance to watch the Method World First at all?
I did. It was really exciting. I got to see those nerd screams. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Hats off to Method. They did a fantastic job, and as close as the race was, and I mentioned this last week too, the confidence in Method, to stream all their progress, to give everyone else technically the advantage of seeing their strats and sort of what they're doing, and to do it at this level. For years we've been saying, rating's boring. There's hundreds and hundreds of attempts, and even when we talk to Sloopbag, it's boring. Who wants to talk about all that stuff and just wipe, wipe, wipe? The commentary was obviously missing. The voice comms would have been great to hear. But yeah, I mean, even Watcher Dev tweeted out to those guys through an amazing race through Uldir. Awesome to watch it unfold along the way. I did tune in for the last two polls, and obviously on the last two polls they killed it, which was awesome. And I got a chance to look at it from work for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. It was really well done. Kudos to Method for proving that it can be done when all of us, including myself, have said, this is gonna be boring. It's never gonna work. It's unlikely to see, but here we are years later and Method streaming world first. So kudos to them.
Kudos. Well, and apparently they had over 260,000 viewers for the Mythic Good and Kill.
That's crazy. Like Method and Sko were bigger than Ninja. Like it's insane how many people are watching this 14, 15-year-old game, right? Do a world first kill on some stupid, Starship Troopers boss, right? It's incredible.
Right.
And
But it was fun, and Limit did a great job too. And it was actually interesting to see. It was fun watching our discords and all of the discussion that was coming from them rating. So I enjoyed as much watching our discord and them, pointing out things and catching things. And of course, it's great to be an armchair raider. So
Of
we had
course.
a lot of armchair raiders.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, I've been streaming for 5 years now, and I've noticed a lot of armchair raiders over the years. So totally used to those who of course have the advice and have yet to step in LFR. But yeah, I'm glad it was an awesome race. I'm just super happy that everybody had fun and nobody got banned for exploiting or cheating or account
Yet.
sharing.
It's
Um,
early yet.
yeah, no. I mean, I had this weird dream that I don't know, guilds got banned. I don't know. I had weird dreams about Warcraft. Anyway, so moving on. So they had the world first. Number of guilds have also killed it since then. But let's move on to what else is happening. Azurite trait tuning, right? That's sort of happening. The game is still being balanced for BFA.
It's still being balanced, and they're
Mhm.
bringing out some new traits on the 25th, Monday, Tuesday,
Ah,
for tanks and healers. So they have a preview on the forums of what they're looking at. And, they might give shamans some useful utility or something. I don't know. We're waiting on the shamans, right?
Yeah, I don't mean we have Notaro who like everyone says elemental shamans are crappy. He finds a way to top the meters every single which way. He's our little Zeus. But yeah, shamans we'll see. I mean they do need some buffs. Obviously flavor of the month are still priests at this point. But yeah,
I
hopefully we
wish
get
they would change that.
yeah. Well, yeah, a priest saying do you want to be changed from being OP?
Yeah, because I'm tired of all of these people that have never played priest before playing priest. Go
Oh,
away.
I see. So hopefully the traits, I mean, it's something that should have happened a while ago, the tuning process, and yeah, they get more data sets with the game being live itself. That being said, though, it would have been nice to get this done prior to balancing, and it was really weird that did some balancing mid race too, right, mid progression. That being said,
That's very unusual.
yeah, well, there was a lot of rebalancing, and oh, we missed a decimal point on things like Fetid Devour, which we talked about last week as well. But yeah, I mean, we have new Nazarite traits tuning coming the 25th. What, 2 days, 3 days? What is today? Sunday. So
Tuesday.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Tuesday. And what else? What else do we have coming?
Well, we've got Brewfest going on right now,
Ah, yes, the holiday that
which
just
means
keeps on
we
giving.
get, which means I do want to do um, ram racing. Just one
Yes.
night stop and do a ram racing for fun.
Well, I was going
We're
to mention
busy
that.
right now, so we didn't like plan an event, but I still want to do a ram racing.
Oh, for sure. And I'll do this between Death Jesters and Zeros to Heroes, and for the viewers that are out there as well, we'll do some giveaways. Basically, there is a Brewfest mount, or sorry, the Brewfest race rather, the Ram Racing outside of Ironforge. It's of course Alliance Master Race. The dwarves have this cool little Ram Racing thing where you'll go from one little thing of apples to another and get all these little checkpoints along the way. But we actually plan out our own route. It is a 5-minute route and race, and we're going to do it a little bit differently this year as well. So for those that are excited in Death Dish and Zeros to Heroes, expect a really cool race. So we'll give away some cool prizes as well. It's a really quick investment in terms of time, but it is a super super fun race for those that want to race against their guildies and not just raid, but do other fun stuff. Right? It's that's part of what the game is about, doing other really cool things. And do you
Absolutely.
and
But
do you
there's
have
really, go ahead.
the Brewfest mounts yet?
I don't have the Kodo,
Uh,
and I don't want to discuss it because I've been trying for 10 years now.
I see. So, quick little anecdote. I have both, obviously, but the one time, I think about
Sure.
8 years ago, 8 years ago, it dropped in my group, and one of the guild apps won it. And obviously, he didn't trade it to Guildmaster for whatever silly reason. I mean, he's no longer around. Not that there's any correlation between those two. Um, but yes, don't keep Brewfest mounts away from your guildmasters because they want them.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because the Guildmaster is special.
Super unique.
But there's really nothing new for 2018.
Yeah, which is too bad. I was
Um,
hoping for a new Stein or something like just. They have been clearly busy, balancing BFA. So I understand that Brewfest took a bit of a low priority. The
well, honestly, we're right in the middle of doing all of these other exciting things and getting ready for doing mythic progression and building new teams and all of these things. So I almost forgot it was there. I have yet to go in and try to get them out. Usually I'm in there the minute it opens up, and it started on the 20th
oh yeah, you gotta get in there. You have an alt or two maybe.
or
I,
three.
apparently the gear is really
Actually,
bad. It's like 283 item level. I was hoping they bumped to like 300 or something for
well, and they
players.
had to fix that too because it wasn't originally fixed.
Oh, wonderful.
So let's move on to the Harvest Festival before we start ranting about balancing. It's from 9:18 to 9:25,
S-
and
So what is this
they
Harvest Festival? What is this
well
thing?
basically you go. It's outside of Ironforge and I think Orgrimmar, and you're. It's sort of like Memorial Day. You get to remember the lost members and celebrate them, and they updated Uther's Tome too.
Yes. Yeah, I visited Uther's Tomb back in beta, and should feel like it's really well done. It's incredible. I know I saw the tweet from the dev that actually revamped that entire Uther's Tomb, and there was some speculation that there was more lore behind it. Could just be aesthetics, right? It could just be updates coming along, but we'll see. I mean, it might have
Well,
cost us a
actually,
rate
if you
here.
go to the Wowhead guide for the Harvest Festival,
Yeah.
they talk about some of the new things that have been put in there, and there are some lore
Mm,
teasers in there.
interesting.
So I honestly haven't. I've been very busy with weddings and
Of
new
course.
teams that I haven't gotten to do it.
Hmm.
So I've still got to get out there before Tuesday.
The other really cool thing is the Warcraft Diary Kickstarter. And as a vanilla player, and I'm a vanilla player because obviously I'm telling you, it's really cool. So John Stats, who's been on a number of podcasts from Starting Zone to I can't remember the other one I was listening to. He's been on a number of different things, and one of the original devs for Warcraft. He's got a really cool diary of all the things that happened, and he's got really good glimpses of this Kickstarter. I think it's got like 40 hours left in this thing, essentially for a book. Like it's a big, massive nostalgia piece of history and novel of when Warcraft team visited the EverQuest studios, for instance, and they got a lot of stuff from there and the process along the way, and a lot of the really good learnings from building Warcraft. So I have backed this Kickstarter myself because I'm curious about these kinds of things. It's super expensive as a Canadian, but there's always a digital copy as well that people can use instead of the hard copy. Have you backed it? Have you looked into this Kickstarter thing?
I have backed it as well, and can't wait to start seeing the stuff that comes out of it. But
Yeah,
yes, I backed it as well.
it's exciting. It's really cool stuff for those of you that are real nerds about this kind of what happens behind the scenes and the useless knowledge behind the stuff. I love that kind of stuff. I think it's awesome.
Well, and I think I can't wait to see the book itself and all of the things that come from it.
Hmm.
And maybe it's something that in the future we see if we can't get him to come on and we can chat a little bit more about it. But I can't wait to see it. And I did. They had over $400,000
It's crazy.
backing this.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
for a book, I think it's one of the highest grossing or whatever highest backed Kickstarters in this category, which is incredible.
Just goes to show the loyalty of Warcraft fans.
Hmm.
Hey, did you see the cool new mount that came out?
Yes.
It was released on Pirates Day.
I'm pretty sure it was released because Blizzard is losing subs and they needed to lock people down for 6 months, right? Is it
Now
100?
that would be the cynical side of me might have said the same thing, but I probably wouldn't have said it out loud. I'm so glad you're here for that.
No, I mean the rumors have been out there like, oh yeah, they're losing numbers. They need to lock this down. No, it was a damn pirate holiday. Okay, it was a pirate holiday. They released a damn pirate ship. It's awesome. It's a pretty cool mount. For those that already paid for their game time, I think it's 100 days or is it 6 months? I can't remember which one it was. I haven't got it yet because I've been paying through gold and tokens that way. But it is a really cool mount, and I will get it for people that bought the or
Don't mess around. It's only here for a limited time.
That's true. Well, I guess I'll have to buy it sooner. It does add to the mount score. It's very similar to the BlizzCon mount from last year, I believe, right? The big airship, which I thought was fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that one was incredible.
Just so you know, though, it has been tested. It does not. Float on the water like a boat should.
Yeah, and
So.
it would be nice, right? But it's one of those like pay to win. Like, okay, I can get a water strider, or I could, pay for this mount who is also a water strider and use my ship. The ship is awesome. Like, it should shoot side cannons. It is a bit of a reskin, but it is a really cool mount. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't go fast in the water as it should.
That's okay. It was one of those days where I said, okay, Blizzard, take my money. Because I also had to get the Captain Cracker's companion pet, and he's really awesome. He's got a pirate hat, and
Does a
I'm
pet?
all over him already. Yeah, he's leveled already. I'm having a great time with all my companion
Oh.
pets.
Yeah, like I've got hundreds of dollars saved up on my BattleNet account from all the time we've done sale runs for previous expansions, and I might as well just use it on that, right, rather than Hearthstone packs. Gotta
Well,
stop
we'll
that
talk
addiction.
about that, but I want it back for, keeping the raid going.
Yeah, yeah. So what else? Exalted reps are now account wide for 100 exalted achievements. I saw somebody on Twitter had 99, or they're getting really close to 100 exalted. I think I'm close to 90-ish or so. So there's got a couple I got to go back on and do some PvP, some war
Well, the
song.
nice thing is, apparently, in looking at it, without the horde side of it, very few people could actually achieve that achievement. So they made it so that all of your characters count towards the 100 exalted reps.
Wait, I need to do horde.
Now, yeah, I think you need to do
Ah,
horde.
man.
I don't think you're going to make it without it.
Ah.
Now, just to be really clear, though, this doesn't change. So basically, if I'm exalted in, for example, the Winter Saber?
Yep.
That counts towards the achievement, but only the tune that got exalted on Winter Saber can get all of the things from the quartermaster and things of that nature.
Right.
So you have to make that distinction that they did not make exalted reps account wide.
Hmm.
So you still have to, if you want to have leather working patterns in BFA, you still have to go get Exalted or go back into BC and do that. Your individual tunes do that. They just have added it so that all of the different reps can get together, can help you achieve getting the achievement. And as of right now, I don't believe, unless you include the Horde, that you can make that 100 Exalted rep achievement.
Interesting. I'll have to look into it. I mean, I love Exalted repping everything. I have to double check and count how many I have now, and I need to do Winter Sabers and a couple of them little minor ones. But I have some of the old school ones. I think like Chandelier and things you can't get anymore. But yeah, so moving on to our last little bit here, we did talk about this last week as well. So Deadly Boss mods, you guys know him as Mystical OS or Adam. There's been a huge outpouring of support since we mentioned it last week. I think it was the Friday or Saturday which we really started it, and it really blew up. You know, through Towley support and Asmongold and everybody out there. You know, this guy's been soloing this DBM add-on for years and years and years. We've been using it. It's got like 200 million downloads, and finally he's a guildie here of ours as well. But he's gone through some tough times, and he's supporting his mom, and the community really banded together to really support him. He's got I just checked 2,945 Patreon supporters, which is incredible. It's almost going to hit 3K, which is insane. I'm glad, I'm truly happy that he's finally getting the recognition and support that
Well,
he's.
and what's interesting on that is when I checked this morning, he had 2,932. So he got another 13 supporters
Yep.
from this morning to when you checked.
Yeah, no, and that's incredible. I mean, I'd love for it to hit 3K. I thought it would hit 2K no problem, but to hit close to 3K, I didn't think it would ever get this high. So it's great. I told him just think of this as back pay for all the work that you've done to support the community. Deserve it. It's not gonna, I think, last forever. I told him, it's probably gonna be a big burst, and it's probably gonna die down pretty quickly, and people are gonna cancel their Patreons because they want to support, but people do have other priorities as well, like Starbucks coffee.
Well, right. My Starbucks coffee I need. Hey, Starbucks coffee saves your life some days.
Yeah.
Just so
Oh, I know. It saves my life when you have coffee.
Absolutely. That was what I was saying. But there's other things that we use as tools within the community.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Warcraft logs.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of places that if I frequent them, I do offer my Patreon support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But where does it end? I mean, I don't want to spend, $100 a month on top of my game subscription supporting all of these various developments. So I sit there and I sort of think, for me personally, what I do is I make a decision if it provides a service that I find very valuable, which Deadly Boss Mods I've been a Patreon supporter of since he visited us the first time.
Yeah, on our podcast. Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, on our podcast.
Months ago.
6-8 months ago?
Yep.
So I'd already been supporting him. I also support Warcraft logs,
Yep.
as well as How to Priest and Wowhead, because they are tools that I use. But I haven't gone down to supporting Details or Voodoo
or Weakoras,
or whatever, because at some point, I want to support the community, but I also am not made of money, so I have to make decisions.
Yeah, I mean those are sometimes the real monetary costs of raiding. Like you want to support all these developers, but at some point, like you got your own budget to work with as well, and you can't just, keep giving to every charity out there, right? Even if their story is really compelling, like yeah, you can help out sometimes, but the key person is you. You need to take care of yourself as well. I agree.
Right. So we sort of touched on that, and with that, we're going to move into raiding in general and mythic raiding, and having a different mindset from the game activities to preparations for the raids to the actual cost in both time and these days gold to keep up and achieve what was once a min-maxing goal and requirement. And so that jumps us into our topic of the cost of mythic raiding.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you start this off? You want to get into mythic raiding, and then what?
I want to get into mythic raiding, and I want all that comes from it. I want the mounts, I want the achievements, I want the gear, I want all the shiny purples.
And the pets.
And I want that pretty title, and I absolutely have to have the pets. What's
Yeah.
involved in that?
So a lot of it is time. There's a huge time investment in terms of what you need to do, right? It's not just show up to raid and be a good little soldier, and sometimes it is just that, depending on the level of raiding that you're doing. Me personally, part of it is dailies and world quests, right? Right now, as a raider, you're probably doing Azurite power gain of some sort, whether it's PvP or your dailies or your world quests or doing islands or doing dungeons, whatever it is, right? That's part of a time investment. It's not just show up to raid and I'm going to show up there with an 18 level neck and I can't use, half the Azurite gear. Um, no, most teams have a certain requirement. For instance, Death Jesters, the expectation was you're 23 at some point this week, right? So, like, I'm almost 24 at this point, and I put in minimal. Like, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate in real life, so that it's pretty minimal. Like, I'll do some world quests for an hour or two. I'll do my islands, my weekly, 5 heroic islands because I can't be bothered with Mythic right now. I'll do them with my wife, and that's something we do together. I'll do a couple Mythic pluses. You do your Mythic 10 right now to guarantee that high level cash. Then I'll help the guildies out as well. Like they need their 10s or their 9s or help some zeros to heroes with some lower keys or mid keys or high keys, and that's fine, right? So that's some of the time investment as well. But it does take, hours of time to get all those things done. It takes an hour to do island expeditions. There's the Warfronts as well now, which we have finally unlocked, which is great. That took another half hour. I really enjoyed it, by the way. There people found them really boring, but I love them. And so that's just the sort of the
They
maintenance.
had pets, so I liked them too.
Warfronts, really?
Yeah, well, you didn't do the other side, which was when we had the rares and all of that, and went through and killed all the rares. That's where I got like 2 or 3 pets.
Oh, oh, I see. But yeah, so that's just a little
Oh,
maintenance stuff, right? Outside of that, there's a lot more research to be done. Like there's boss encounters and strats, and you're going through the Fat Boss videos or the Coach's Corner videos, or you're watching other streamers do their kills, right? That's the kind of prep that you're doing as well outside of raiding. So that requires a huge time cost, right? Then there's your own class changes. The expectation of Mythic Raiders is that you're keeping up to date with your relative, your respective discords, whether it's a Paladin Discord, the Hammer of Wrath one, or your Peak of Serenity Monk one, or your Warrior Discord, whatever it is, right? Or you're dealing with, Kib's memes on the Demon Hunter one. It's all those things. So you're spending a lot of time outside of raiding, prepping for raiding, which in a sense that's a lot of what vanilla was too, preparing for raiding and getting up to the same speed because you know it's expensive. You need to spend a lot of time prepping for raiding in order to be as valuable or as useful as you can going into a raid. You don't want to be wasting people's time and therefore their gold and their time as well. So there's a lot of that stuff as well. And then in the meantime, I mean, we went over our expectations. I think a week or two ago in terms of what we expected as a guild. But there's also log review. Okay, so between pulls, we're going through logs. Okay, let's see what I can do to improve or what didn't work that time. And then at the end of the night, my little off time is also going through my WoW Analyzer tool and going through my log review. Okay, well, what worked, what didn't work? These healing cooldowns were crap. We got to fix this stuff. So and so wasn't DPSing the ads. Like this guy was using a prolonged pot. What the f? It's that kind of stuff that you're going through afterwards as well to constantly improve. It's that perpetual improvement that you're always striving for. So there's a lot of huge time investment going between raids and after raids and before raids. You're talking to people, right? Like I've got tons of resources out there. If I want to go into Fete Devour right now, yeah, I've got the kill videos, I've got logs, but I've got a ton of Holy Paladins on the Holy Paladin Discord. I could ask questions and ask advice of like, well, what worked here, what didn't work, and why, right? Because why reinvent the wheel and why go through all that struggles myself when I've got all these people that already killed it and and did various things on it, right, that were effective for their team. So there's lots of little things that you're doing in terms of that time investment in order to prepare for the raid, and that time comes with a cost, right? Whether it's real life sacrifices, or you're not spending time here, or you're not going to the gym, or you're not watching whatever your latest show, or you're not doing other things that you could be doing. That is a huge time cost to raiding itself.
well, and if you look at it on an individual basis, and you're working with DJs and I'm working with building up the weekend team, and we're our weekly goal was only 22, but we have a lot more that haven't necessarily mythic rated at a mythic level or have what I would consider a mythic mindset. And within that, I say that, you know, There maybe their neck is still at 18. Um, they might have done a Mythic +2. They don't always get to the island expeditions. And then you watch the Death Jesters come in, and they're all done on Tuesday afternoon. Before I get home often.
Yeah, and we want to get those things done ASAP because you want your best foot forward going into a raid. You want to make sure you're ready to go, and you're that sort of model raider going into things. And you know what? Real life happens. Mondays suck for me because they're so busy, or Tuesdays can be really busy too. And I've got a kid, and I've got a wife and family. We try to eat dinner and try to squeeze all these things in before raid happens, and sometimes it's tough. I wasn't able to do Warfronts I think until Wednesday or Thursday, but they had come out on the Tuesday. I don't do islands until later in the week when my wife and I have some time. But yeah, you want to do things as quickly as you can, but every guild is a little bit different, right? You want to have
Well, and
people
they
with the
have
same mindset.
absolutely. Well, my son had the audacity to get married the first month of a new
What a guy!
expansion. I
Why?
don't know what he was thinking.
Right? Like, right. Think about midgets and her raiding. She wants to raid, and there's time and sacrifices, right? And obviously, for important things like that, you can't sacrifice, family stuff for raiding. Well, if you're playing at a really really high level, sometimes, but really, I mean, you have those things like weddings and the big engagements that you just can't skip that kind of stuff, right?
You can't skip that stuff, but I can tell you I got far less sleep that week because I'm up there trying to, I'm up Monday night going, I got to get all of my, and I had some great people help me. I have to get my island
Oh, I
expeditions so
know.
I can meet the goals. But that was my whole mindset. So this weekend I was like, I've got to catch up because I've been behind.
Hmm.
And so you've got to do is you've got to recognize that there are different levels of rating,
Hmm.
and that as an individual you have to decide what your time commitment is, because you don't just, if you're going to raid mythically, and we're going to talk about just the costs, the gold costs of min maxing these days,
Hmm.
and we're going to work into that, but you also have all of these time commitments to get to this point. Trust me, there are days when there's nothing I would like to do more than, everybody's like, Midgets, do you have this pet? No, I haven't had time. I have to get AP. I've got to go ahead and get the gear. I've got to get my Mythic Plus done. I've got to get the roster set up because I'm doing leadership stuff
Hmm.
too. So if you
Absolutely.
add in leadership, you really cut into that time. So no, I haven't gotten all the pets yet. So I'm quite upset. But that's for when it's a slower time. And then there's other guilds where, they don't have those requirements. They come in and they maybe do normals or do heroics. But once you start mythic progression, the min maxing comes into play, and you start looking at what you need to do, and you start looking at numbers. We have all of the teams in the guild on WoW Audit. So if you guys haven't used WoW Audit, it's a great tool to track how many mythic pluses you've done, how many world quests you've done, where your AP is. And we have some overachievers on all of the teams,
Oh
and
yeah.
then we have some underachievers. And it's finding that happy medium for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And each team is different again, and their expectations will be again different, and how you gain that AP or that gold or whatever varies from player to player. We have players that will do one mythic, they'll do their 110 a week. That's fine, but they're going to do 500 world quests, and they're going to be like at the top of the charts for their neck level. That's fine, right? There's if you really hate mythic pluses, okay, well they're doing the minimum for this, but they're going to go above and beyond for the other stuff. So yeah, I mean, every guild and every team is different, and it's really important that everyone on the team has the same mindset. Otherwise, there's going to be some frustration from players that are not keeping up, or people that are not enchanting their gear, or not gemming stuff, or not using flasks. So you want to make sure that the team has the right direction, and you have those chats with your raiders of what the expectations are going into each raid. But let's talk about some of the gold costs. So, you've run our guild bank for a little while now. Midgets helped stock the guild bank, and work with us in terms of stocking herbs and flasks and pots, and super well organized now. We've got a really thorough audit sheet or a banking sheet in terms of how much gold we're spending per day on these kinds of things and repairs and how much each raid costs and herbs and all these really cool V lookups for those of you that are, Excel aficionados. So let's talk about the gold costs, right? I'm in a Mythic raiding guild. We raid 10.5 hours a week because we don't bullshit our raid hours. And what's sort of expected? I mean, how much are we going through as a guild? I mean, I'm okay sharing this information because it's easy to figure out.
Well,
But
do you want to do before you got mad about pots or after you got mad about pots?
so let's go before. So whichever.
Before we were running about 1.2 mil a week. And then Sparty went, "Why are you guys using old pots? Why aren't you using double pots? Why aren't you pre-potting? Why aren't you using health pots?" And we went through 3 million in
Flabbergasted that I had to say
2 days.
that. I'm flabbergasted, as yes, people found that word for the first
Well, and
time.
then what was really funny was your reaction when you realized how much it cost. They really cost 750 gold each. Yes, Sparty.
Yeah, like each pod is 750 gold each. Okay, well that's gonna be expensive. Like, we stock the guild bank, and the gold costs themselves, right? Like rings are what 6,300 gold each. A weapon is 2,500 gold each. Like that's for the enchants themselves in order for people to be enchanted. Augment runes, that's the one thing we don't supply as a guild. They're 600 gold each, right? Times 20, that's what, 12,000 gold. It's a crap ton of gold. Flasks, if you're not an alchemist, and ideally you are, for the 2-hour flasks, it's going to cost you 8,000 gold per night. It's expensive. The gems are expensive. Repairs, they're going to cost you 500 to 1,000 gold per night per raider. And Midgets has said the costs have increased over the years, right? Like in previous expansions, we had all these awesome garrisons and mission tables, and you guys were just swimming in gold, right? It was so beautiful. But now there's not a lot of gold income, and we'll talk about the sale aspect of it. But here's some real numbers for you guys that you need to wrap your heads around. The average raid team, so 20 people, right?
20 people
Okay, so a mythic raid team spends on average 42,000 gold per person.
per night of about 3 hours and 20 pulls. So it's obviously much higher when you're doing progression and wiping than it is when you're doing farm and clearing.
No. So 42,000 gold per person per night on an average pull night. Okay, so do the math. So you as a raider catastrophe, me as a raider, I'm spending 42,000 gold on materials. That is flasks and foods and potions. Can anybody raise their hand for who has 42,000 gold to spend per night? Like not many of us. Like that's crazy, right? Like it's a huge number to rack your heads around. And we're on a high pop server. There's lots of raiding guilds. There's it's a fairly healthy economy as well. Here's another one. Method had, they listed their wipe counter. They had 667 wipes to clear Uldir, right? And that's just their sort of mains, whatever they did. That's just Mythic. If you average out that 42,000 gold, they spent 28 million gold in the first couple weeks, right? In order to secure that world first. That's, again, they can do cheaper, whatever. I'm sure they have people farming for them and, all the fanboys giving them all the herbs. But it's tough. Like 28 million gold to have that done, right? This guild, my guild right now, is looking at a cost of 16 million gold in order from mythic progression to the end of progression, based off the timeline that I have sort of laid out. We're going to be going through 16 million gold. That's a crap ton of gold. And for guilds that haven't done sale runs or stocked up a gold, just think of your guild. If you did, BOEs and each person, sold their own BOEs or had to make their own gold. Okay, so it's going to cost you 42,000 gold per night, right? On an average 3-hour raid night to get all that stuff done. Well, when do you have time? So you're doing all these other things. You're doing your AP and you're doing your islands and you're doing your mythics. When do you have time to sell runs? I guess you could sell mythic pluses. I guess you could do sale runs. But when do you have time to get this 42,000 gold together? I guess you're spending another, what, 15, 20 bucks to buy a token in order to get gold on top of the $15 a month you're already paying. Like it's crazy expensive to be mythic rating, right? It's insane.
Well, and see, we're going to find out, and that's something we're going to talk about, is the costs continue to go up. But Blizzard, when they made the change to personal loot,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like it or not, they changed the infrastructure of what was income for the higher level mythic rating guilds, which is sale runs.
Yep.
And by doing so, they didn't lower the costs of rating. So, for example, one of the potions, just one of the potions, takes 10 of one herb and 8 of another. That is a huge cost when those herbs are 65 gold each. And that's how you get there. So you get the procs and you get the people who will farm. But where do you have time to farm and do all of the Mythic Plus and do, your islands and your 10 hours of raiding and have a life outside of WoW?
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, how do you find the time? And not everybody is Method, and a lot of guilds have hundreds of millions of gold stocked up. I think Method had 100 million. We came into this expansion with, I think, 20 or 30 million gold. I can't remember what the number was. Do you remember what the number was?
It was 20.
Yeah,
It
so we had
was
20. Yeah, we had 20 million gold as a guild going into the expansion. We're bleeding pretty quickly because we haven't fully pushed those sale runs. I mean, we are selling runs now for heroic for those of you that want to buy heroic gear on personal loot. But it's tough. It's tough to manage that stuff, right? And if raiders felt that cost of each pull that much more, I think there'd be a lot more investment of like, well, we got to get this stuff down. There's no dilly dallying or screwing around. Like, this raid's going to cost me 42,000 gold tonight. Like, that's a lot. Like, this, it's going to cost me $6 to raid tonight. Right? Like, if you want to
right.
convert it into actual dollars from token or gold to token, or, sorry, from gold to cash dollars, right? What that token is worth, it's going to cost you $6 to raid tonight. Right? Well,
Exactly.
and then people are wiping my stuff, and they're not using pots and enchants.
They're not
and,
using the pots. And,
like,
yeah, I wish you could have seen my face when you did that, because all I could think was, well, we were building up the pots, and there they all went. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and poor Zerania, who's our rank 3 alchemist, I mailed him 1.5 million gold worth of herbs and said, hi, do you have time to craft these for me? He was thrilled.
Yeah, I'm sure you just went AFK for like 20 minutes while his character was crafting pots.
So, something has to give.
Well,
so there either has to be more ways for raid teams to support that, or you have to have different expectations. And I know Death Jesters changed within this tier their expectations of, normal rating and what we were providing, just to account for those costs.
Yeah, we did some quick napkin math when we were initially, okay, so it's going to cost this much for our regular food and this much for our feast. We're not going to use a feast for this crap. Like, it's just not worth it. It would be irresponsible of us to use guild bank funds on something like that, right? Like on a feast for normals, or for this thing for heroic stuff. So we save our good stuff for the really close pulls. Obviously, we're not using augment runes until we're really close to a potential boss kill, or we're not using our good feasts until we're doing mythic. And the one thing Blizzard has recognized is they realize some of these costs are tough. So in 8.1, they're lowering the cost. Fantastic. That's going to be months away. Right?
Yeah, that's
like
months away.
how does that help me right now? Just hotfix the damn shit.
Just so you know, you spent 90,000 to make 40 feasts.
90,000 gold.
Yes.
Fantastic. It's like when my wife spends money on the credit card. Like, oh, fantastic. I'm sure we absolutely needed this. Probably did. And there's no arguing. Like, it needs to get done, right? Like, it's ridiculous, but
But those are things. So they're reducing the cost in 8.1. They're fixing the classes in 8.1. When does 8.1 come? Because I'm, as somebody who has worked with Death Jesters and your progression rating and the guild providing, 95% of everything, we've been more dependent on the raid team to help us this expansion than we have in the past.
Absolutely.
And because the costs are more than they were in Legion, and Legion, we were still running 1.5 million per week. The difference was the sale runs were helping it.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, everything's coming in 8.1 to help these raiders. So what, should I just come back in 8.1? Right? I'm sure cutting edge will still be there, right? But should I just stop raiding till 8.1? I mean, it's ridiculous that guild is spending this much money to in order to raid on top of the requirements or the social pressures, let's say, to do everything else to get done, right? It's
Well, and where does it go with the min maxing mentality? I mean, I have a hard time. So, like last night, we were working on a boss, and I'm like, I'm using this augment run, and I'm using this flask, and I'm using this best food. Because for me to be mythic rating, I need to be min maxing. So
hmm
I've got my enchants, I've invested in them. I dropped personally 80K to give myself my own flasks.
yep.
And I got procs out of those. Thank you, Czar. But again, you still, that gave me like 25 flasks. So that's expensive. And so not everybody has that money to do that. Some of us do, but
Yeah.
not all of us. And if I spend 80K a week, I'm not going to at the time. So you have to have reasonable personal expectations. Your team has to have reasonable team expectations.
Yep.
And then going forward, you have to have the team support. It is definitely causing us to work together more.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure.
I'm urbing already.
And that's the thing, right? Like you said, every team has different expectations. And what if you're a new team and you don't have 100 million gold stashed, right? Like, well, what do you do as a new team in order to fund your new mythic raid stuff? Well, a lot of it is like what you said. It's you're an herbalist now, right? You are now as you're leveling, and my warlock is going to do this too. Thankfully, the one great change they did was you're able to relearn your potions or whatever, or your previous professions. So my warlock, my alt that I'm going to be leveling, is going to level through herbalism. Basically, it's going to be my little relaxed time, run around, kill a few things, dot some stuff up, and just go pick flowers. Right? That's how I'm going to level because
Right?
the guild needs it. Right? It's yeah, I could be doing this other stuff too. I've already met my requirements. My minimum expectations for my own character on Sparty, my paladin. And now I've got more time to kill, right? I could be doing other stuff too, but I could be helping the guild out, right? And that's where guilds and players really need to come together. We were spending a lot of, we're spending a lot of gold, and we were bringing a lot of gold into the guild bank in Legion. Now we're not doing that right now, so we need to help support. Whether it's, we did fishing parties back in the day of in Wrath because you needed these feasts and you needed these special blood feasts. So we would spend an off night or half hour after the raid night for those that could stick around just fishing. Right? People would kill animals, jump in the water, and then it would be bloodied pools, and people would fish out of bloodied pools, and that's how we got through a lot of fish in order to get this guild achievement, for instance. And that's what people need to do. They just need to band together. We have plenty of gatherers in the guild, and sometimes I think it was Swolfie spent 4 hours or something mining because we needed stuff to get done for Monolite ore. And I mean, everybody is contributing a bunch of stuff, whether it's enchants, you have disenchanters, and yeah, they're doing they're doing a 5-man or they're doing a mythic, and they're getting gear they don't need. Instead of scrapping it, they're going to disenchant it. Please disenchant stuff instead of scrapping it, guys. And
Right.
and then throwing it in the guild bank, right? Yeah, this guy, you know what? This enchanter that we have in the guild could absolutely do a mythic plus and disenchant the gear and go sell it on the auction house. Absolutely. But that's not the team environment, right? Like we want people to be part of the team and we want people to support each other, and that's what this character or this applicant in the guild is doing, and that stuff goes a long way in terms of building the teamwork and building um, the bonds within that team, right? You want to keep doing those kinds of things.
Well, and speaking of enchanting, personal loot is going to change that too. And I'm curious to see going forward because normally as we get further into the expansion, we start seeing more items being disenchanted, and
hmm
so our crystals and whatnot grow. And I'm going to be curious to see how that progresses between all of the teams that we're going on. And one of the things that personal loot has impacted a lot of the income for the guilds, and
hmm
it's impacting things like bringing in the enchanting mats. So it's really made it very, very expensive, and I'll be curious to see how it goes going forward, and I'll be curious to see what's on 8.1. But I do think that Blizzard needs to change the model so that it's not so expensive for people to enjoy raiding, because it's too expensive.
Well, yeah. Again, like 8.1 is going to come out when a month or so from now. It just hit the PTR now, the super unstable version of 8.1 that should have been released in the first place. Yeah, it's going to be at least a month out. That's not helping anybody right now. Like we need these fixes right now to support rating. Like it's again, it's insane that we're spending this much gold in order to raid, right, in the mythic setting. And yeah, you know what? Sure, we could raid without flask. We absolutely could. It is our own choice to be raiding without, with flasks. Sure, you could make that argument, but that's what we need to do in order to stay competitive, and that's what the guilds in general need to do, right? We need to keep pushing those things. Okay, so you're starting a new raid team. Let's say you're a weekend team. How do you go about raising, the bar to these expectations, right? I was in the I was helping one of the weekend teams last night, and something really awesome happened. So at a 395, they had like 8 BOEs drop. Honestly, like it was crazy luck. So a 395 BOE drops. What do you do? Like this thing's going to sell for at least 1 million gold, right? The raider that looted it easily, it's 1 million gold ticket right there. You could buy 6 months worth of tokens, or I guess a year worth of tokens at this point, or get 1 million gold and buy some mounts, and closer to your dino mount. But what do you do? What do you do at that point? Well, this guy is like, okay, well, do we roll this off? And someone's like, yeah, it's my best in slot. That's fantastic. It's a 395 piece. That is a 25% upgrade for you on your bracers. That's great. So what is going to help the team the most, right? What kind of team mentality? Well, okay, let's just give it to the team lead, Grims, and let's go sell it, because this is going to give us tons of gold, right? Tons of flasks, and the repairs and the flasks and the foods are going to do much more for the team than one guy getting best in slot bracers, right? Or gloves or whatever it was. So that's the kind of stuff that really goes a long way for setting expectations, and really building that team environment for your new potential raid team. And part of it is just having those discussions.
It is. And, with the weekend team, because we started, and there's two teams within the weekend team. You were helping Yang, and I was with Yin. We went with the bring your own buffs because we didn't have any. We never raided together until Uldir opened, and so we didn't have. So we're just now starting to build our stores, and we've got some great people who've donated enchants and flasks, and they've been herbing and all of those things. But we didn't have all of that prep going into it. So we've been doing bring your own buffs, and when we start mythic raiding, we're going to have more expectations. But right now it's been, set the example. You use the large meals. We're not requiring flasks because we don't have enough to make cauldrons yet, because that's a very expensive cost. It's 3 of each flask. So each cauldron costs, plus the expulsum, if you go back to the 8,000 times 4, 32,000 gold for a cauldron, which is significantly cheaper than everybody buying their own, but that's still
Sorry, how much?
the outlay.
How much gold was that? How much gold?
32,000.
32,000 gold per cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to last you typically an hour, right? So what, 3 cauldrons per night on average?
Right.
That's a lot of gold. That's, you raid 2 nights a week. That's 100,000 gold per night. 200,000 gold just on on flasks, right? That's
and
again
one BOE sale at 1 million gold is only going to give you 5 weeks of cauldrons.
Yeah, but again, hopefully you get lots of BOE sales.
Right.
We had Club SC here, I think, said, well, you should just recruit some farmers into your guild and then just carry them through heroics or mythics. And you know what? That is actually what some guilds do. And nothing wrong with that. Do what you want. They'll recruit farmers into their own guilds. So they'll just do nonstop herbalism, skinning, whatever, and they do that for days, and that's what they love doing. But you know what? They don't like raiding. So they'll bring these players into their guilds, and they're going to fill up their guild stocks because they've got their own little farmer. And eventually, once the stuff's on farm, they're going to bring these guys in for a cutting edge kill, gear, whatever, and that sort of offsets the cost, right? And that's totally viable, right? If you have people that you want to have in your guild do that kind of stuff, yeah, by all means, absolutely. Please send Sparty your free herbs, because we need them.
Well, and there's a lot more on the. Well, yeah, we all do. There's a lot more to the building of this new team, because we have people with different experience levels,
Mm-hmm.
and different commitment levels and different time levels. And one of the challenges that we've been running into, and we knew we were going to when we started these teams, we had enough people for 2 teams. And we had, at first glance, taking a quick look, running a mythic together, because we didn't really raid together before we started. We had enough potentially to have 2 mythic mindset teams.
Mm-hmm.
We're we're 6 whole raid days into this. And of course, there's been challenges within every one of those 6 days.
Yep.
And some of those challenges have been that what do we do with the people who are, their neck is still 16? And in selecting the teams, we did a lot of, well, this guy goes over here because he's a paladin and he's friends with him. And we've got a paladin over here. And it ended up that one of the teams had a lot more mythic minded people than the other. So we've been battling that too. But at the end of the day, we've got to continue to work on closing the gap between the mythic minded min maxers that are willing to drop the 80K for flasks and those that are still sort of, well, I got a mythic 2 done today and my neck's at 16 and I'm not quite there. And as well as the mechanics and the strat preparation and everything else, and make them into 2 functioning teams. And we may find that we have to change the progression goals of the teams based on the people that are there. Because not everybody wants to. Okay, Zerania, I'm going to pick on Zerania. He's got 2 fully raid-ready tunes. Both of them have necks over 22. He's got 2 more that are sitting at 340, but not quite raid ready. And we're 4 weeks in. And then we have somebody like one of our other guys, and he makes 1 out of every 3 raids. His neck's at 17. He didn't do his islands this week. And trying to put those 2 people on a team isn't going to work.
Yes, because
we're going to frustrate the overachiever and we're going to discourage the underachiever, or not underachiever, but someone who doesn't have the same amount of time or desire to put that kind of effort in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that comes to the time costs and the gold costs of raiding, right? If you want to raid at this level, you need to put in this much time, right? That is your time cost. If you are unwilling or unable to put in that time cost, this level of raiding is not for you, right? It's not ready. You need to have more time to train or practice or whatever it is. Think of it as sports, right? Like, hey, you want to go play in the NFL right now? That's fantastic. Are you ready to go jump into, I don't know, the local, what is that? One of the crappy teams, the Cleveland team.
I don't know. I'm the bad one to ask sports, Sparty. We'll go with Cleveland.
All right. So like you want to jump into the crappiest team, fine, but you're still not ready. Like you're not ready to make that jump because you don't have the time commitment or the gold commitment or whatever. So maybe you should be playing, low level football instead. And that's where your aspirations are going to lead you because you don't have the skill or time or you're not ready to make that jump yet. And again, it's a huge time and cost and gold cost commitment, right? You need to sort of stick within your means, but yeah, strive for more, but be realistic, right? If you don't have the time to do your Mythic 10 and do your islands and whatever, keep up with AP for whatever your guild or your team has set, then maybe that level of rating is not for you. And that's just, that's the bitter, the tough pill to swallow. Like you don't have the time for it. And raiders that move on to, to have families and do all the other kinds of things and have full-time careers, the bitter truth is you don't have the same time that you used to, right? I can't raid 8 hours a day anymore like I did in Burning Crusade 6 days a week. I cannot do that level of raiding anymore. So what is my level of raiding? 3 days a week, 10.5 hours. I have other flexible time where I can do my farming, but that's the level of raiding that is okay for me, right? You got to find what is going to work for you and your team and make sure the rest of your raiders are in that same group of expectations.
Well, and having that conversation on either side, it has been, because within the 2 teams, and we tried an experiment, and we haven't encountered anything I wasn't expecting, just so we're really clear, because everybody was like, we want to raid over here with midgets. Okay, great.
Must be nice.
And as the teams, as the teams have started to develop, we have our go-getters. We definitely have our go-getters. Perdition, who is our disc priest, is like 25, and I think he's up there with Zara, and he's awesome. And then we have I'm sort of middle in the pack. I blame my son for that. I'd be a little bit higher, but I'm at least a week behind. But I've kept up with the team goals. And then we have others that just aren't, well, I'm sick or, you know, and you have to have that conversation. And it's a tough conversation to have to say, well, perhaps we change the end goal of what you're doing. So instead of trying to head for mythic, maybe we work on heroic being our
Hmm.
goal with early mythics and build the team up. And then, of course, finding leadership to help make that happen is the biggest challenge of all, because for all of the things that we just listed, how many hours a week do you or I spend with leadership duties?
Oh, sweet Jesus! Don't even get me started. Like it's, you know, every waking moment essentially, right? It's checking our phones, got messages. I've got the officer leadership in Death Jesters, and we've got another one for raid leads and Zeros to Heroes between the 10, 11 teams. And we have another Zeros to Heroes leadership veterans group for supporting the structure. Like it's a lot. It's a ton of things to watch. I've got, I don't know, we have what, 60 plus channels, at least 70 plus channels in the Discord, most of which I have muted because I don't need to look at, Nomi's or Team Rockets or Team Toasters leadership channels. Like they got things started there, but I need to, spend my time going through um, my relevant channels, right, to keep up with things that are going on, or add some thoughts here, or make sure the conversation is being steered in the right direction. And it's a huge time commitment. Like it's massive. Like it's incredible. If I was just a raider, I could have so many more things to do, right? If I didn't have two guilds and a raid team to run and a stream and a podcast, so easy, right? But again, it's those time sacrifices. It's those costs of raiding, which really gets us to our last little bit here for tonight. It's you have to make sacrifices, right? Whether it's gold costs or time, whatever it is. For those of us that were young once, it was sometimes school, right? School suffered. Your exams suffered, or your schoolwork, or your sleep suffered. That was a time cost, and the sacrifice you put in to get rating done. I did full time work back in Burning Crusade and full time school, and I slept 4 hours a day or 4 hours a night because I had to do recruitment as well, and it was 6 days a week of raiding, and it was extremely tough, right? Like I made a lot of big sacrifices, and at one time it was a girlfriend saying, "Well, choose your stupid Warcraft guild or choose me," and here I am 14 years later with a much better wife and partner. You got to find what what sacrifices you're willing to make at that time. Am I willing to sacrifice, family time for raiding? Not really. There's things that are more important some days, and sometimes it's a family birthday. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be missing, the one raid a month, or the one sort of requisite raid a month that we're allowed to miss for birthdays, or for my brother-in-law's birthday because he's turning 30, and I guess that only happens once. So yeah, you have to sort of figure out what you're willing to sacrifice, and method. They took vacations, or they took as much vacation time as they could, and you're sacrificing the time cost and the vacations that you have in order to do that world first, right? Everyone has those time commitments and the cost they want to sacrifice, right? And we've all put them in it, and sometimes we can't do that anymore, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that, but for every level of rating, for whatever your aspirations are out there, whether it's normals or LFRs or heroic or mythic, or whatever your goals are in Warcraft, there will always be a time and potentially a gold cost associated to it. It's up to you guys to determine whether you're willing to pay those costs. And if not, well, time to reevaluate what you want to be doing. So, with that, guys, we're going to call our podcast to a close. Thank you guys for listening, for watching. Have a good night. Be excellent to each other. And as always, live your life heroically. Have a fantastic evening.